Hi there, it's Marzena. I can finally say that I have officially finished my school, passed all of my final exams, and soon I will receive my dental technician diploma. And no school means more workshop time for me. I will be starting this year with some Valentine's projects. This one I'm calling the Lovebird. So let's dive in. I found an inspiration for this doll at my parents' house. As you can see, my mom goes cuckoo when it comes to decorations and flowers. Not exactly my style of an internet decor, but it can be a great source of inspiration. Like those decorative cages that my mom buys whenever she sees one, to put flowers or Christmas lights inside. So I thought, why not make a bird doll and put her in one of those cages? Because I'm evil. As my captive, I chose Draculora, because I want to stick to some soft, pinkish Valentine's coloristic this time. This specific doll came to me in a package with many other Monster High dolls, sent to me by amazing CI ponies. I can't stress enough how grateful and happy I am that you believe in my art so much that you decided to send such a package to me, a complete stranger from another country. Thank you so much. Do you guys remember this girl? She was a hand donor for one of my tooth fairies, and she is willing to give some more. Such a generous girl, that Holleen. Okay, let's start customizing. Of course, as a first step, I needed to cut all of her hair. Then I heated up her head in a boiling water until it became soft enough to be removed from the neckbag. Then I removed all the remaining hair plugs and the melted glue from the inside of the head. Using 100% acetone, I removed her factory face. I prepared an acetone and water solution, 9:1, for the slow head shrinking method. I let the head soak for 2 days, dry for another 2, and then I repeated the process. After 8 days of shrinking, I could trim down the neckbag, widen the neck hole, and put the head back on the body. I love head shrinking. I turned my doll into a cozy burrito and sprayed her face with 3 layers of Mr. Super Clear sealant to prepare it for the face-up. The hair that I wanted to give her were creamy with pink ends, so I decided to make her skin a little bit more creamy too. It wasn't the best idea, but it's a learning process. Sometimes you are making bad choices and you need to figure out how to turn them into something good. I like to experiment with different kind of facial features and expressions, just to add some variety to my customs collection. For this girl, I was aiming for smaller eyes with heavier eyelids. And definitely a sad expression, because, you know, she's imprisoned in a small cage. So, I recently bought a new camera to upgrade the quality of my footage. I haven't used it yet, so you don't need to wonder why the quality didn't change already. But I was thinking that maybe along with the quality, I should also change my editing style. Like, change the pace, slow down a little. That will of course mean that I will have to cut out more to keep my videos 20 to 30 minutes long. But the remaining footage will be more calm and maybe more pleasant to the eye. I don't know. What do you think? Better more and quicker, or less but slower? Let me know in the comments what you would like to see. After I painted the eyes and lips with a gloss varnish, I also gave my girl glossy tears, and the face up was done. Let's give our birdie new pair of legs. I used an old silicone mold from my chicken fairy to cast the feet in epoxy resin. If you want to know how I sculpted this foot, go check out my Esther fairy video. She's still one of my favorite dolls that I've made so far. I added some pink resin pigment just for fun, and I filled the mold drop by drop using a needle. After 1 day, I inserted the wire, and after 2 more days, I removed the cured foot from the mold and repeated the process. When both feet were free, I sanded down rough edges and the excess of the resin. Say bye-bye to your old feet, sweetie. So, few words on why I prefer my micromotor for dental technicians than my Dremel multi-tool. I find it more precise because it allows me to use my thumb for stabilization, while Dremel's tip is spinning along with the milling cutter, and it can burn your finger easily. The second reason is that you turn your Dremel on and off with a switch, while the micromotor can be controlled by a foot pedal. Much safer option. Shortly speaking, this is why I'm using my Dremel only for heavy work, like long EVA foam sanding. You don't want to overheat your micromotor with too long work. I drilled the holes for the leg attachments and for her wings and tail. At some point I decided to cut off the legs in the knees so I will be able to reattach them in a much more suitable position. I also decided to widen the range of movements for one of her forearms. Of course, I couldn't leave the plastic panties, seams and factory numbers on, could I? I sanded them all down as always. Before I did it though, I secured her new face under a plastic wrap. Then I glued all the pieces together. I wanted to give her a swing to sit on. And how can you sit on a swing without 2 holes in your butt? Yeah, I drilled 2 holes in her butt. I bent a long piece of thick wire to create the base for the swing. And because the base will be permanently attached to her butt, I won't ever have to worry about her falling off of it. But before I attached the swing, I glued her legs and left arm in place first. I deliberately didn't put any glue neither on her right arm nor her left elbow and wrist. When the glue dried, I covered the joints and wires with epoxy. Just to stick to the pink aesthetic, I used not my green epoxy, but a pink one. That turned out pretty grey. What a disappointment. I also gave her few epoxy feathers on her chest. Cute. On the next morning, I could get straight to sanding down the cured epoxy. Back to our swing. I wrapped the base tightly with a very bendable wire. I also added a loop on top so I could hang the swing in the cage. I fixed the doll on the swing and could finally make a seat for her. I created the seat around the bottom wire from EVA foam. Then I made wood-like markings in the foam with my old soldering iron, and at the end I've covered the foam with Worbla thermoplastic. I wanted my swing to actually swing, so I needed the wings to be as light as possible, so the whole doll will be well balanced. So I cut loads of feathers from EVA foam. Then I sanded down their edges, made a pattern with soldering iron, and snip-snapped some foam here and there. And repeated this on every feather. After a few hours they were done. From Warbler I've made 2 wing bases with embedded wires. Then I just hot glued the feathers one by one. The top part of the wings I finished with foam clay. I've also made a tail. Those wings and the tail were pretty flimsy, so I hardened them up a little with coats of vehicle glue and water mixture. It covered them nicely without filling and ruining the patterns on the feathers. 3 coats were enough. This was a good moment to glue the rest of the doll in place. The hand wasn't so cooperative, so I fixed it temporarily to the swing with a gardening wire, just until the super glue cured completely. I covered the rest of the joints with epoxy. When it cured, I smoothed everything with a nail buffer and put a buttload of pink acrylic to cover the epoxy. I thought that grayish clay will be easier to cover than my old green one. Well, it's not. But I'm also not a fan of the Liquitex acrylic paints. Their coverage is just non-existent. Anyway, I also covered the swing with white acrylic and then used a rust effect paint to get just that. I let the paint fill all the crevices and then I wiped the excess off. After I sprayed the wings and tail with a creamy base color, I could put 3 coats of MSC on them and the doll's body. I blushed the feathers with pan pastels and I also gave the body same blushing treatment as I did to the face. So, I dropped the doll when I was spraying her with MSC. I checked her immediately and she seemed fine. But here I noticed her knee joint actually cracked. If this doll would be for sale or a gift, I would have to sand down the area, detach the lower leg, glue it back and cover the knee joint with epoxy once again. But this girl will stay with me, so I just brushed some liquid varnish to seal the crack and put some color on top to cover it. I painted her nails and the patterns on her feet white. Then I glossed her entire feet and fingernails. Finished pieces looked pretty good, so I could finally put our bird together. I glued the wire attachments into the holes, and after the glue dried completely, I covered the connections with epoxy. That was a bit tricky, cause I didn't have a good access to those areas. That is why I blushed the doll first. I painted and blushed the epoxy with pan pastels, and this pink epoxy is really hard to cover. And why? It is almost gray. At that point, I really missed my green epoxy. I fixed the color under a layer of MSC, and finally I could unwrap her head and work on some hairstyle. I hate my dolls looking so damn fabulous while bald. It makes my hair decisions so much harder. Making hair is not my favorite part on people or dolls, and those nasty brats don't make it any easier. How dare they look so good bald? I was planning to give her long wavy hair, but her bald look spoke to me more. I was thinking about sculpting some tiny feathers on her head, but I was pretty sure that I will destroy her face up, so too late. So I just straightened the synthetic hair that I chose for her at the beginning. Remember to always check a small portion of hair to see if it's heat-proof. I cut them into small, shorter pieces. And I started with just putting them here and there to see what would suit her. I decided on short bangs in the style of Yolandi from the Antwoord. Longer hair on front and shorter in the back. And I glued them straight to the doll's head with a craft glue. The process was messy and yucky, and because it is not a fast-drying glue, it took me almost the whole day to finish this hairstyle. Following Etelan's tip, I first glued and cut the bangs, and only when I was happy with them, I moved to the rest of the head. I tried to record the whole process, but my hands were non-stop in the way, so I just did it off camera. It didn't turn out too bad, as for the first time making such a haircut. Now I just needed to flatten it down a little with my tiny iron. I did it very carefully to not burn her face. I also used just a little bit of hairspray. Time to cage her. As I said at the beginning, I grabbed this cage at my parents' place, but I needed to get rid of those decorative panels so the doll would be well visible through the bars. How lucky that the prosthetician's micromotor is made to cut and sand down not only plaster, acrylics and ceramics, but also metal. So I just put on my metal cutting disc and worked. After the cutting, I sanded down all of the rough edges so I won't hurt my fingers. The lower panel was in fact what holds the bars with the bottom of the cage together, so I didn't remove all of it. I let a small section stay. Just so you know, the sparks didn't burn me or my sweater or anything. And no, working in gloves wouldn't be safer here. You really don't want your gloves caught in your spinning milling cutter, trust me. But you better wear goggles and mask, cause those metal particles are everywhere. To the 3D printing machine. Here I am showing off my discovery that probably most of the Anycubic wash and cure users know already. But hey, I was proud of my cleverness. So, I printed a bunch of human and bird bones, sanded them, sprayed with a creamy base color, and painted with wash technique. You basically paint on the surface with a watered down paint, darker than the base color, let it get to all crevices and then wipe the excess off with a paper towel, tissue paper, or a piece of cloth. After the painting, I sprayed them all with Mr. Super Clear to secure the paint job. I glued all the painted bones to the bottom of the cage, just so our girl would know that she's not the first tenant here. For the last step, I glued the hook for the swing in this tiny hole in the upper part of the cage. I used hot glue first, and then I secured it even more with UV resin that I cured under an UV lamp. With the girl and the cage done, my lovebird project was finally finished. And here she is. Cute, sad, and a little bit creepy in the same time. I am over the moon for how she turned out. Couldn't be happier, I think. Her face is so gentle, her colors looks great. I really like how everything comes together in the end. You couldn't see that in the video, but this project was one big procrastination for me. I was afraid to start with the wings, don't ask me why. I was anxious about modifying the cage. It could end up in pieces and I have zero knowledge about welding, so it would be too hard to fix. The leg cracked. My first hair idea sucked. I think I spent most of the month avoiding working on this doll. But I'm so very happy that I finished her. And what do you think? How do you like my lovebird? Is she a good starter for this year's Valentine's celebration? I really hope that you enjoyed her process and you are ready for more. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it and click the subscribe button with a bell for the future notifications. I wish you warm and cozy Valentines, filled with love, especially for yourself. Don't let anyone trap you in a cage, and have all the creative and personal freedom that you need. Thank you guys for watching, and see you soon!